You're fine.
Can one of the two
You're
like him to see if he really is here?
I don't think we're allowed to do that.
I was half kidding. We are Senate Transportation. We are going live again. We have we're talking about the miscellaneous DMV bill, and we're talking with Josh Hannaford, and I think we're talking about section 16, 18 or 19, 17 or 18.
18, it looks like.
18.
Yes. Josh.
Yes, so for the record, Josh Hanford, Director of Intergovernmental Relations at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Thanks for having me in. Certainly an area that I don't work in a lot. I am here to talk about Section 18, to speak about the suspension of the requirement for a CDL license during certain weather events. I don't have a background on the sort of intent of this. I believe it probably has good intent for emergencies and so forth. So don't question that, and certainly want to chat more with DMV about sort of the reasons for this and how this works. Just want to describe a little bit of where VLCT might have some concerns on this. VLCT has a commercial vehicle manual for our municipalities and the employees that drive these. And the folks that put that together from the risk management and the attorneys that advise on sort of matters have raised concerns with this. These are the folks that advise municipalities on matters. One series of concerns which maybe are addressed in the bills, look more at it with an attorney, can we do this with the federal? Does this really preempt the federal requirements and their statutes and their regulations? I'm sure that can be answered. The bigger issue is more about the liability concerns we would have. There may be very good reasons to move some of these vehicles during a flood event or put someone in this position. But if you're having people that aren't familiar with this work, driving in the worst conditions, we're concerned about sort of safety and risks issues there. I think we'd be much more open to consider this if municipalities were granted the same monetary liability protections as the state has regarding their employees when accidents do occur, not criminal, but accidents occur. The state has a monetary liability cap that provides some protection. It's $500,000 per occurrence, $2 million aggregate. Municipalities aren't granted any liability cap, and we're an extreme outlier. Every state that we have surveyed in the Northeast has a liability cap. Massachusetts is as low as $100,000. New Hampshire's is $400,000, but none of them have no liability cap. This is an issue VLCT has brought up on a number of occasions when there's new liability concerns, whether it be the salt bill we talked about last year, reduction in salt, 3-acre stormwater permit, where municipalities that have much more property and much more direct contact with most citizens than the state does without these liability protections. There is a bill that's on the wall in House Judiciary from last year, H138, that deals with this. I know that's not your committee jurisdiction, but perhaps if this conversation was to be furthered in this DMV bill, and we want to look to gaining DLC support for this sort of emergency situation of allowing folks without CDLs to drive these commercial vehicles, perhaps a consideration in this bill of some sort of emergency provision that would kick in that same liability with the state during these events in case the worst case happens and there was an accident, someone was hurt, because we know, unfortunately, the first place folks go to look for relief is to lawsuits, and we have deep experience with very expensive lawsuits across the state. Municipalities are charged with the responsibility to defend their employees. And we've had multiple cases of this happening that have cost the taxpayer substantial dollars. Because you have to remember that municipalities are insured by their own taxpayers through insurance policies, which the league provides. And so this is a matter more about that liability concern and the risks we have that are much different than state employees that may be asked to perform the same duty.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you can provide written testimony because you have put some numbers in there and I want to make sure I have that. And I was going to ask about the insurance companies basically,
Yep.
which it's part of VLC. And that's important.
Yep.
And I don't know how we came to get this language, who was advocating for it, but it does include.
It's DMV's bid.
Okay, so they advocated for it. So,
It didn't deal with the liability insurance issue.
yeah, I think that's a really valid concern. And your point about this, the whole premise is that it would be in an emergency situation, which is, it has its own
Time to
risk.
drive, yeah.
Yeah, and I would be concerned also just about the person, the driver too. I mean, their safety is really important. So those are my concerns, and we'll hear from the MD. Thank you.
Before, don't move. I'm gonna ask the commissioner to comment.
Sure, happy to add a little color to this as well. Andrew Collier, Commissioner DMV for the record. So this came about as an agency initiative or thought process, and as we've worked through that, we felt it was appropriate and should be extended to allow municipalities. So the piece about liability did not come up in that conversation. It was more a high level for the agency personnel to be able to, in times of emergency, get equipment moved, backfill when you have a prolonged event, whether weather like a snowstorm or a flooding event, get some fresh people in the seat, because I would argue is more dangerous for someone staying in a seat for 16 plus hours in a CDL vehicle than to have someone that is familiar with the vehicle come in and relieve that person for a few hours who gets some rest and get that person rested and back in. This is not, when we say putting someone fresh in the seat, this is someone that's going to be familiar with that. I'll use the example of the larger towns in Vermont that have park and recreation departments. They have 550 dump trucks and they operate equipment. They just might not have a CDL, and you're able to kind of pull someone from that team to come in who's familiar with equipment and help out if needed. And again, these are going to be emergency situations. You're not going to have a lot of other traffic or vehicles out there. It's going to be a concentrated event. And as far as the federal government piece with the FMCSA, because this is dealing with intra-state or just in Vermont, we're able to flex, have that emergency authorization to use this kind of like when we reduce the hours of service needed for propane in the winter. Or we just did one recently for salt, for hours of service for trucks to travel to New Hampshire to Portsmouth to haul salt. Because it's a Vermont declaration. We do work with FMCSA, but that as far as that federal piece is concerned.
Thank you. I understand why you would want that flexibility. I can see that. But
Nope, and that's a valid point on the municipality side on liability. So,
yeah,
and
and operability too, just for practicality.
Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, and the CDL program, I don't know, I think isn't it federal?
well, they have the federal regulations that
That oversee it? Yeah, I just wondered if we'd be flying in the face of federal regulations for that un-CDL plow driver on the highway.
Well, that's exactly right.
I don't know. Well, that's okay. And I wonder also if it would if it would diminish the amount of employees that would want to get their CDL if they didn't really have to, you know, plow drivers, I don't know if they make more money or not, but yeah, I don't know.
You definitely make more. If, are we allowed?
Well, I think this is, it- this is directed directly at emergencies. You know,
Well, every snowstorm,
I'll bring up a specific situation. The town of Johnson. The, town clerk's office sits here. The fire department sits here. And the fire department is, funded, by the town, and the town helps them buy the trucks. It's in the flood zone. 3 feet of water in the fire station. If the flood waters are coming up and there isn't anybody there with a,
yeah,
CDL, should they leave the fire trucks in there to be flooded? Or should they, drive them a half a mile and get them up the hill where they're not gonna be flooded?
well, see, that's what I thought this bill did when I first read it. Now that I'm hearing I can get behind the wheel of a plow and go down the interstate.
Well, I don't think we want that. And I think we want to make sure it's narrow, but in coming from an area where we've had towns flooded, and Johnson's had 2 floods, and I know the fire stations in the flood zone. I can't imagine we'd want them to sit there and let the trucks flood. But in that limited case, if someone jumps into the truck, I think it's clearly a question. I don't know what the federal regulations are or if this runs up against any of that. And I would say to you, we probably would want to hear from somebody around the federal rules to that. Because I do know if you're agricultural, you can drive a truck for 150 miles as long as you're delivering agricultural products in a tractor trailer truck without a CDL license. So I'm not sure of what the rules are, but I think if this was narrowed to an emergency, and it might be helpful. I know the league has its own attorneys. If you had some connections with someplace that had some exemptions, at least in the case of this emergency. And if that language came across this table, I suspect we'd want to at least take it up with the Judiciary Committee here. Does that make sense?
Yes, I just, it's hard to legislate what rules you can break in an emergency. You know, that's challenging.
Yeah,
So I think we should talk more and talk with the attorneys, and I think it's very reasonable for the municipalities to want, especially if the state would be counting on municipalities to help. I don't know if that's why they're in here. But if they are going to be in this section and we do go forward, I think municipalities need liability protection because it's just not fair.
Yeah, and just to stress, the liability protection we're looking for is no different than what the state has. Legislature granted these liability caps to the state and all the state buildings, property, state parks, all the employees. You know, a decade and a half ago, and whatever reason at the time, they didn't include municipalities in that $500,000 monetary cap.
so I didn't, this is for you, Commissioner. Again, was the intent here move equipment in a snowstorm? How narrow is the intent? You know, the first thing I think of is a flood. Because we've had floods in the area. I'm not sure I want to go to just a snowstorm, but if you're going to lose a truck,
Absolutely. It was narrow. And yes, it's not just a snowstorm. The thought was there was a storm as a child. It was like a 4-day storm. We had, I think, almost 3 to 4 feet of snow in Colchester. We haven't had one of those in a while, but it's something that would beyond normal course of business. So for that is depleting your assets. It's moving equipment in a flood thing, and then just only using the winter example because we're in winter. A snowstorm that's so stretched out that a limited use of additional resources to come in and assist where applicable. Again, this would not be used as a snow event like we had last night, or snowstorm or anything like that. This is an emergency, and it's a high bar to
Just
Go
a
ahead.
comment. So, there are lots of emergencies, right? And we couldn't even list all of the emergencies because there are things that haven't even happened that could be emergencies. And I mean, there are situations where if a person is hurt and a doctor helps them in an emergency, that the doctor's not liable in a certain way. I don't know exactly how that works. But it could be already the case that if there's an emergency, which would mean generally people are harmed or could be harmed, you might already be able to do this because the CDL isn't the only thing that's constricting you. There's other things that constrict people. Like, what if the person's like 18 and knows how to drive one of the trucks? I mean, there's a lot of 18-year-olds. So this might, I would talk to our attorneys a little bit. Just
Well, I was gonna ask, was this drafted by,
this came from DMV.
we, could we get your attorney in here to talk about that? And, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in here, what I'm hearing is on a very limited basis, we might be willing to, I don't think anybody wants, in the case that I brought up, the flood, the trucks not to be able to be moved. I don't think we don't want them out plowing the roads in the middle of a snowstorm, when they're not gonna lose equipment.
Yeah.
And if there was some ability within the department and your legal staff to take a look at if they're moving something just to get it, a piece of equipment out of harm's way in an emergency like that, is there a way to give some cover? And we would consider that. But I think it needs to be very narrow. Does that?
yeah, or very broad. I mean, you can like, what if there's a fire? I mean,
Well, I don't think the fire is broad. I think,
like an emergency.
an emergency.
Yeah.
I do know Damien and our legal counsel are working on the term emergency. We
Okay.
just had a meeting yesterday on that, and they are.
And so it would be helpful to get your attorney in the chair to talk about a fire is another case. If a
Yeah.
building's on fire,
Right, get it done.
yeah,
Get
they-
it housed up.
that kind of. Yep. And I think there is some sympathy for the question that they raise about moving equipment and having some cover for liability. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll probably see some new language and I'm glad it come back.
Excellent. Thank you.
We have DMV Tony, that's coming.
Morning, how you doing?
Morning,
Morning.
have a seat.
I think we have the chairs.
Two chairs.
Oh, there's a chair over there, or whichever.
And if you would both like to introduce yourselves and
Sure. I'm Bob Malveny. I'm the president of Vermont Tow Association, also owner of B&B Towing and Recovery in Brownington, Vermont and Williamsville, Vermont.
Herb Bartman, Vice President of Vermont Tow Association, also on TDI Truck and Trailer Repair Towing in St. Albans and Swanton, Vermont.
perfect. You're here to talk about section 13 of our miscellaneous DMV bills.
Yes. That is the abandoned motor vehicle change that they're looking at. I read it. It looks like at the bottom, you're trying to have that so that, whoever would call for a tow would pay the tow company and then get reimbursed from DMV. Is that
Mhm.
my understanding of it? Yeah. I guess, so how the current process works, if you tow a vehicle, you have, I think it's 72 hours, and then you would apply for an abandoned motor vehicle with DMV. You submit the required paperwork with VIN verifications. You mail it in, they send the last known registered owner. They have 30 days to respond to the letter. If they don't get a response, I believe they send a certified letter. And then after that 30 days, they would call us and they say, do you still have the vehicle? Have you heard from anybody? No, they would mail us the title and occasionally the $125 check. So it's a box on the form. that
Why do
you-
you need it? Why do you need occasion? Something they don't pay you?
Yeah, so it seems to be more at the judgment of the person that does them. We've called several times, a lot of tow companies don't get them and, they'll say it. They send a check to it's always somebody else is getting it messed up along the line. But we implemented this with you guys, I believe 3 years
Yeah.
ago we were here. I think a couple of you were here. Yeah, you were here. And, it's better, but not how it was written by no means. So there's always seems to be a stipulation of why you didn't get it or what you did wrong, or, maybe it was the police report number wasn't the right police report number or some sort of story.
Bureaucratic.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But prior to that time, it was $40 for an abandoned motor vehicle. We had it raised to $125, and then that was, I think, 4 years ago or so. Obviously now, everything's gone up, the cost of trucks, labor, insurance is doubled, bucks have doubled, fuel. So $125, I think we're in contact with the Vermont State Police quite often, and, they're running into trouble with towers getting towers to go get abandoned motor vehicles, right? You're gonna be stuck 90% of the time with these cars for $125, and most of the time they're calling at 2 or 3 in the morning. So people are on overtime, who wants to get out of bed in 30 below weather and go fetch a car for maybe $125. So. I did get some notes here that, you guys had talked with somebody from DMV on this, and, it looked like there was some talk about with bigger vehicles like RVs. RVs are very hard to dispose of just because mostly made of wood. They have septic tanks in them, so that becomes a whole nother process. If the tank empty, it has to be pumped out. Nobody's doing that for $125. So it's creating a problem with getting, I think, on state police's aspect of it, of getting people to take care of these vehicles and cleaning up the roads.
If you don't mind, I'll put faces on that a little bit. I've reached out to Casella. They will take the trailers, pull behind trailers, as long as all the propane, sewage, appliances, all of that stuff is out of them. And, they do it on the rate of the C&J for the drugs, which is $201 a ton right now. Anything in a motorhome confrontation, they do not want nothing to do with it. 4 of our local salvage yards will not touch them. we were running into in Franklin County, these things being moved all around the parking rides and showing up in the Hannaford supermarket parking lot, Price Chopper. And, we told the city PD we would help them out to get a couple things moved, and we did. And, later that night, they moved them right up into Enosburg at the old Armory parking, which is a parking ride. And they parked them right next to where the EV cars park. So it's a problem and they're moving around and the police are dealing with it a lot. But $125 is nothing for that, and it's nothing for a car, so there's a lot to be looked at there.
Are you saying that for the RVs, these aren't abandoned, they're just people that are living in them, but parking them where overnight where they're not supposed to?
When their heat source is burnt to rig, they're abandoning it, they're leaving it. We just moved, and we just moved 3 out of St. Albans 3 months ago. Nobody came after them or nothing, but we're pushed in a corner. Well, if you don't want to move them, then we're going to take you off rotation. Well,
That's what the police did.
yeah. So, you get pushback there, and so yeah.
Yeah, and we dealt with this.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Then one of them we towed in, they found out where it got towed to, and little did we know that 2 nights later, they were living in it on our property.
Oh.
So now we're an RV park.
Yeah.
Well, diversified.
Diversified.
And I believe there's only one person processing abandoned motor vehicles right now for towers. So like, I know there was a medical leave this summer by that person, and it backed up the whole system where no one was getting titles. So in the state of Vermont, I believe it's 3 vehicles on your property that you now become classified by ANR as a junkyard. So now that possesses, we're not a junkyard, we're just waiting for the state to process, pay for it. So it's
And as soon as you get title, you send it to auction.
we can send it to auction, we can do whatever, we can scrap it, send it to auction, whatever.
Depends on the car.
Yeah, it depends on the car. Most of these cars, the paper plates were a huge issue for a while. I know right now that program is suspended, from what I understand, but when you could get a $6 plate, I mean, nobody wanted to tow any car because they all had the piece of paper on the back window and you knew nobody would come for that car.
I think, well, go ahead and then when.
My question was answered, so I just wanted to know when
Okay.
you were talking about they took the car somewhere else. I didn't know who they was.
Thing is in what?
In the St. Albans example.
Well, the people that were the homeless would get them moved to wherever. They like in the St. Albans parking ride where we had to move them out of. We moved them from there to 2 of the people said they had a property they could park them on. Well, that property was not correct because our vehicles are wrapped and our names all over them. Our phone started ringing. So I called the city PD and I said, you got a problem on your hands. I did your favor and I'm not stepping in this. So they went, bugged them. Then they ended up on the rail trail. And then now they're back up at the armory and they get them around somehow.
So they have a key to them and then take them away? Is that-
Whatever, some of them are trailers, some of them are, they got them there.
Okay.
So yeah, meaning they is the people that were staying in them.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So who's the end loser in this? You guys are losing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're called at all hours and we're the only ones going out to get these vehicles and I mean, towers all over the state. So,
So if things go right for you and you tow a camper or a trailer and you put it in the right spot where this person that you track down, right, the owner, or sometimes it's the town that you do, say it's the owner, and you put it where they told you and everything's good there, who pays you then? The owner of that camper?
so the owner of the camper would pay if they came to claim it. And if
If they
don't, we're stuck with it. We have to file for
You're out.
abandonment.
that tow money,
Correct.
the town, if the town calls you, do they cover the? No.
No, the only time currently that we can charge anybody or that we charge people is state police if it's towed back to the barracks for a criminal investigation, because it goes, it could be at the state police barracks for years.
If I assume you like the language, because you could, the police could say, we want you to tow this, you could say like, well, did you pay us right away instead of us waiting 30 days and going through the bureaucratic mess?
Yeah, and I mean, is that how is it gonna be written as, this still the cap of the $125?
Yeah,
But-
but separate issue, so there's the cap,
Yeah,
which probably needs to be raised, but then there's a question. I assume you support just having, being able to bill, who's the person that asks you to move it instead of waiting for the event.
right.
Or for the owner to come get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be better as long as they know how to do the process, you know? What if it's a local town or,
But you just said, you owe us $125, like, we're not gonna come get it. DMV will pay you
right,
if it meets DMV's process, but it kind of puts the burden on the person that's asking you to tow instead of the burden on you.
yeah,
I mean, that's how I read it. Cause what we heard is that there's some towers saying we're not gonna come get it.
yeah, it's happening a lot now.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah. I think most all tow companies are now screening files of what year is it? It's a 96 Cavalier. Yeah, I'm too busy. Yeah. You know, and it's, nobody wants to work for free and, you know, we're,
Which is kind of the problem we had before when it was only $40. You're like, I'm not gonna do it for $40, except state troopers saying it's on this shoulder, we'll take you off the rotation. You wanna keep that relationship.
correct. And they don't want to be spent, they're already understaffed. The dispatch does not want to be calling 15 tow companies to find somebody to take it. They've got bigger things to be dealing with than the Cavalier on the side of the thing.
You don't like that, Cavaliers.
Yeah.
The Chevy Cruiser. that's another good one.
Yeah.
So just regarding the landfill, does anyone take stuff to the landfill? in this?
You have to almost, like on the camper side of things, you almost have to dissect.
Like strip it off?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
School buses are the same way. They have a wooden floor on them.
does anyone take them there?
If you strip them and send them,
Right, but do you all?
If I get one, I have to, I can't take and throw the tires beside the road and appliances out by Total Home Center. We gotta dispose of them the right way. There's a lot of work. in it.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a lot of
expensive.
work in it. It's not cheap.
So does someone pay you to do that?
No.
No,
And we
it's
pay the landfill to get rid of it.
Right, so I'm just thinking there's probably more abandoned vehicles, right, in the system as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
They couldn't give us numbers when we heard before of how many there was, but there's gonna be a calculation where they know where they're at.
I would hope so. And who would they? Who do you think would know?
Dan, Lisa,
Where,
He's got his hand up, and when they are done, we're gonna put him in the chair for a minute.
okay, cool. All right, thank you.
So I think that's where the price cap is kind of even. You know, a car is gonna be obviously cheaper to tow than a motorhome or a trailer or an RV or, you know. And there's a lot of variables with it that go with that.
just the fees at Casella on an average pull behind camper is $1,800. We just did one that was 2,300.
Okay, so who, did the owner pay you to do that?
No,
Cause I would think,
no,
so,
we paid it to get rid of it. 'Cause we
Okay.
can't have a junkyard.
The owner doesn't show.
right, so you spent $2,300 knowing that you weren't gonna get it back? Wow,
It's either that or become a junkie.
It's either that or become a junkyard.
well, thank you.
Or not get a call anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's not fair.
so.
And a lot of people wouldn't do that, which would result in environmental damage.
Has nothing to do with this, but I'm gonna bring up the situation. A load of chocolate loaded in St. Albans, Vermont, heading to Godiva Chocolate, going through Swanton, went off the road and into the river. Load of chocolate worth $250,000. We recovered it out of the river. We did the hazmat cleanup. We own a certified hazmat place. Got the trailer out, got it all out, brought in a long reach excavator to get the chocolate out of the river because the trailer blew open when it went in.
Wow.
Casella brought roll-off dumpsters that evening. We did that whole job. The cost of Casella, the excavator, and getting the chocolate out. The cost of that was $53,000.
Oh, my gosh. So,
No insurance on the truck,
oh, gosh.
no insurance on the load. My wife used to run transportation at Barry Callebaut. They had to have proof of your DOT number and your insurance and everything being done. And I'm not down on nobody in the state of Vermont, but the DOT officer used my office for 2 days for dealing with this junk. Okay? We brought in all this paperwork out of the truck. Laid it out and dried it. He had 7 DOT inspections he didn't pass. Then he drove out of the places. He didn't have a CDL. It was a non-branded CDL. He couldn't prove no insurance or nothing. And DOT let him go with no fines and witnessed it in my office. And I have it on our camera system,
You're talking
Wow.
about, you're talking AOT and Vermont DOT?
Vermont DOT. And that person disappeared. He had no money on him or nothing. We had an insurance company call us that night saying that it was fully insured and everything else. 3 days later, that phone number wasn't working anymore. I put him in the Hampton Inn. He was soaking wet and all the first night and paid that bill in St. Albans. They dealt with him the next day. I said, I'll put you in a motel for tonight, sir. And we'll get you down there. So that night we were shorthanded. We had a taxi pick him up. Next day he didn't come in. DOT was there. No guy. Called the taxi guy. Did you take this guy? No, he had no ID or nothing, couldn't get a plane, so I took him to Greyhound at the Burlington Airport. Never to be seen again.
Wow.
We processed it, nobody responded on the vehicle or nothing. We got an abandoned on the truck, the trailer was junk. And we went through hoops to get that abandoned title, which should have been clear and simple. But it took a while to do it. And, so without our manpower, our wreckers, our equipment, 8.5 hours doing this deal, we have over $53,000 in it.
Wow.
So,
That's a story. That's
and the woman
something
that
we.
writes that check, I sleep
Yeah.
with her at night. That's my wife. And she wasn't too happy about writing out $53,000
Yeah.
checks to get nothing back.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And that's not fair.
No.
It's not a good system.
So
All right, well, we can talk about that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
And so would one of your proposed to be different fees for different types of vehicles as well as raising the 125?
Yeah, I think, yes.
Would you see a scenario where you had 2 categories of caps? One for, pleasure vehicle, pleasure cars, one for campers and
Or big trucks.
big trucks?
Yeah, I think that would be, yeah. I think where it comes in where the costs really start going up is with the hazmat situations, fuel spills and stuff like that is where the prices fluctuate.
and that's where insurance is necessary.
and that man
Real matter.
should have had insurance.
Yeah,
But when you hold the DOT number, it's a federal law. You must hold $750,000 of general liability.
yeah.
Now I'm on the TRA in Washington DC coming up here in February. And the FMCSA is there. It's a Towing Recovery Association of America. And they sat down at the fireside committee meeting and they say, well, we're going to raise that 750,000 to 2 million. Is that going to work for you? And I stepped up and I said, what good's it going to do? 750,000 they're not paying for. You raise it to 2 million, they're still not going to pay for that. Maybe if the federal motor carriers paid for their insurance, we'd have some secure insurance, but we know that ain't happening. So it's a tough situation. But where a lot of problems started is when you guys came out with that $6 tag. that paper plate you print out.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
My little story on that is they go to Walmart, buy a $6 printer and a $6 tag, and they're on the road, and then things are faded out. Now they've ended them, but I'm hearing rumors that as soon as they get the computers figured out, they're gonna bring that back, and I don't think that should be done.
We'll talk about that. We didn't do that.
I didn't say you did.
No,
What else think?
We approved it.
We
You
did
approved
approve
it.
Proposed by the.
I don't think he meant it.
No, I didn't mean it.
No,
Yeah,
but
you get my
this
point.
is really helpful to hear what's happening.
I hope somebody that's sitting on the outside is taking notes.
Yeah. We have a recording.
Bill, I'm with him at the Vermont Truck and Bus. We see each other and speak on better terms now, and I think they're seeing the better picture.
Well, it's been very enlightening and we thank you very much for being here. I think at this point, I am gonna ask you to stay in the room, and if you could take about 10 minutes. And this is not gonna be the last time we hear about this, so. If you guys can.
Sure. I don't want.
We're gonna apologize, somebody's been stealing our chairs.
Curtis, it's been 2 minutes.
No. We don't have chairs. We're waiting.
Andrew Collier, Commissioner DMV for the record again. Happy to jump into talking about some of the concerns here in section 18 and your falls.
Well, I don't think we're gonna get to.
No.
There's really 2 levels to this. One is the fine and.
Yep.
Or one is the 125 and how we might switch around that.
Sure.
But there's a second piece to this too.
Yep. So campers, I would ask the committee to call him Chris Herrick from the agency. Him and his team have been dealing with the camper situation, and paying for those out of the agency. They have their own hazmat team, as he mentioned that there's a hazmat element to this. I think he would paint a good picture about what is happening on the ground, at least from the state side, and then that might break off that second piece on how do we handle these large campers, RVs, that are being abandoned. He's got a lot of great information on what the agency's been doing, and that's only first, I think, would be prudent before we jump into that side of it. The 125, we have a $50,000 budget for it. We're happy to discuss. We estimate about 400 vehicles a year for the abandoned side. We're happy to discuss revisiting that and adjusting that as needed. We identified, I don't want to say in a bad way for the employee, but there was a single point of failure. We had one employee that was handling these over the summer. We now have additional people trained up on these abandoned vehicles, so that part we hope is correctly going forward. But yes, we're open to talking about adjusting. 125 is a lot. They made a great point. You're not going to come out at 3 million to.
Could I just suggest when you do that, though, you talk at least bring these guys in and make sure that you're on the same page as far as what it should be.
Yeah.
I think we'd like to hear back from if you the department meeting with them. My sense is we're not going to get this all corrected. If we could take a step to get it moved to a better place, but we'd like to hear that you work with them to do that.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Are you open to the tiered conversation? I know you want us to wait to speak to Chris, but are you open to that at least?
I'm not sure if it should be tiered or if that should be just a separate section. I mean, it is a big lift for those large vehicles. I think just recently agency paid, I think $6,000 to remove one. I'm not sure if maybe it fits in here in the tiered system, or maybe that should be a separate conversation. I don't know the right answer to that one quite yet.
Okay.
So I don't know on that one.
When you say the agency, you mean transportation?
Yes, they have team.
I guess, so your idea of this, the state police would ask them to tow it, state police would pay the 125 and then for you for the 125.
Yeah.
Have you thought at all, about why you're paying that $125? Like, why is that being the cost? Like, are we appropriating the cost in the right, especially one at $6,000?
Correct.
Should that be borne by some other part of state government?
And I think that's a separate conversation on the large ones. I think is history for the abandoned vehicles is because it's tied to the abandoned vehicle tag. This change, they contemplate maybe that shift just goes to municipalities, goes to agencies, and they just bear the cost of the tow. We were trying just to find a quick solution for an immediate problem and didn't get too far down that.
Because and maybe they don't have to bill you, maybe for them it's too much work.
Yep.
To bill you for them, they'll just pay it and not worry about it, but especially if it's a lot of money, I wonder if we want to be responsible for that, even though you have the title, so you're gonna be involved.
Correct. And as far as the large campers right now happening, unless it's an abandoned title, the towing, at least for AOT, is happening on the AOT dime.
Yeah.
It's not coming through DMV. We're there to assist if they need law enforcement presence or something, just a tagged vehicle, but again, I think there's two separate conversations. And that's for those large motorhomes or better.
And we want them to be, it's kind of like tires and other stuff that we it's A&R, if that's really something that we would have a funded A&R for.
Yeah.
And they are running into that with just vehicles as well, with hazmat, with needles and other items in an abandoned vehicle and parking rights. Again, I'm only speaking for AOT on this one. There's an associated cost that the agency is bearing to make it safe enough just even remove.
Yeah, good question. Can I ask a question?
Not really.
Okay.
We're gonna take one more
Yeah,
question
and-
here.
This is
Yeah.
this is a little bit off the track, so you were gonna say something.
Well, here's what I want. Is we've got some time to do this DMV though. It's not really. If you could come back, you meet with them and you come back and having solved some of these. In this discussion, and you had a report back to us a week from today, that would be helpful.
We can do that.
And, well,
Go ahead, you can finish your.
Mr. Herrick, we should have in, and we'll probably have him in sometime next week to, do that, and you need to give that to, but what I would rather, instead of taking, hands from all over, that you guys meet and come back to us with something.
Yep.
That works better with their needs. And we're probably not going to be perfect in this because this world is not perfect. But we need to take some steps to make this better.
Absolutely.
Not really just towing, but the big issue that around commercial vehicle enforcement. I don't know if you don't have to do it now. I don't want, but I would be interested to hear from Wade or the department about enforcement. Like, are there people getting 4 warnings in a row and then?
Yep, we can,
maybe that specific case, kind of what happened there.
you guys come and talk about that specific one and then just what they see in a normal transaction, that would be a crash or something. Discuss that.
And who would be the best person to do it?
I would say Captain Matt Nesto from RS Commercial.
Yeah, we should do that, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the enforcement issue.
Just about the language itself, when you're discussing the language, about it's basically saying that the other state agency needs to provide you proof that they paid. that just seems so specific. That seems like a procedure that would be in an internal manual, not as a legislative direction. But if you do need legislative direction on that, I would just make it more broad because there's other situations that are similar to that. I mean, it's basically accountability from one
Mhm.
department to another one. So if we're gonna have a statement like that, let's just make it more useful too.
So next Friday, we're gonna put you on the schedule to come back here, and if you haven't got a solution, we aren't on that tight a time frame, but we're gonna look for you to come back and at least give us an update, and we are looking for overall language that,
Yeah, you can do that.
and I think we're 5 minutes from the floor. So I think, Megan, if you could take us
Floor is
off,
11:30.
but,
Floor is at
oh, at 11:30.
Well, that's okay. We can see.
True. I thought the floor was at 11 today.
It can be at 11.
But I can still take you off.
Well, if you take us off and then I was thinking it was at 11.